Welcome to the Conversation Lab. I'm Don Schaefer. If democracy begins in conversation, then we need to nurture a culture where ordinary people like us routinely talk about those things that help us understand each other, whether it's about climate, race, religion, gender, or politics. When we're trying to make sense of our city and the world we live in, every question comes with a set of assumptions about the nature of ourselves and our place in a larger world. The Conversation Lab provides a safe place to talk about some of those things. This program is produced by CFRO-FM in Vancouver. It's available on air and online on various platforms, and we appreciate the help of Vancouver's community groups. Cherie White is an award-winning, passionate visionary when it comes to social justice and business. She's been nominated for the Social Justice RBC Women's Impact Award 3 years in a row, and she won the Real Estate Investor Network Renovator of the Year Award for 2017. She's a resident of the downtown east side and has some fabulous ideas. I'm grateful that you took the time to hang out. I don't know much about you or your business, which is probably a great place to start. What is Steadfast Developments?
Steadfast Developments is a holistic development company. It comes from a community perspective that is all about collaboration and not about gentrification. We want to lead a revitalization project, a large, colossal revitalization project in the downtown east side. What grew out of a passion to see my neighbors. I live in the downtown east side, and so I put together my nonprofit side of working with the Salvation Army together with my for-profit side of working in real estate. And when you put those two pieces together, you get Steadfast Developments, who is excited about leading this really interesting project.
You know, when I asked that question, what is Steadfast Developments, I could kind of feel years in the making.
Yes, absolutely. I was watching a Toyota car commercial the other day, and Toyota is taking a perspective of a holistic approach to their car. So how does the car relate to housing? How does the housing relate to the streets? And how do the streets relate back to the car? And I think that Steadfast Developments is similar in that approach, that we're not just about housing. Steadfast Developments is about justice and about getting to the root cause of why why does the downtown east side even exist? And I believe that it's because of poverty. And so Steadfast Developments, in collaboration with other wonderful organizations in the downtown east side, are addressing this issue head on. Because if we can take care of poverty, then affordable housing, education, social enterprise, which are all aspects of Steadfast Development, seems to take care of themselves. So poverty is a huge piece to Steadfast Developments.
There's a lot going on. So where do you start?
Yeah, I've lived in the downtown east side for 17 years. This is my home. This is where I've raised my 4 children that I have, and I live with my husband, and we live in a community home in the downtown east side. So we have a revolving door at our front entrance, and not during COVID. Unfortunately, we've had to shut that revolving door down. But I actually live with 11 other people, ages 4 to I'm the oldest one in our house, and we invite our neighbors to come and have a meal with us on a regular basis. That's not strange for my children to have people show up at our table. And I think that that's kind of where you start. It has to be a relationship-based model where you don't live in another neighborhood and complain about the downtown east side, but you actually move in and start to listen to some stories, and you start to build relationships and walk alongside of people's struggles. I know for a fact, people have said to me, Cherie, I have a whole different respect for you because you listen to the same screaming sirens that I do. You don't parachute in, tell me how to live my life and how to improve my life, and then parachute back out to your nice home on the west side. And there's respect there. And I think that there's something deep about that. And so that is where we decided to start, was to move in and do our best at loving our neighbors.
This radio program and podcast is called The Conversation Lab. My name is Don Schaefer, and today we're speaking with Cherie White, who is the president and CEO of Steadfast Developments. You know, Kimberly Crenshaw says that if you want to fix a community, you have to start by working with and talking to the marginalized and vulnerable. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. How are your kids? How do they fare in the downtown east side?
I think that their perspective of people that live here may have been different if we chose to live in a more of a suburban lifestyle. My husband says he is really concerned when my kids go to the mall, when they go to Metrotown. He prays over them before they leave, because when they go to the mall, there's such a subversive, such a passive commercialism that when you walk into a store, they say, oh, hi, hello, how are you? Because they want your money. They want something from you. But it's so much more not out in your face. When I step outside of my house, there's people often smoking crack, and it breaks my heart, but there's women on the corner of my street, selling themselves. And, that is, my kids will never do drugs. They see in their face what drugs and alcohol, the abuse of alcohol and can do to somebody. And so my kids are really very clear on there's nothing hiding here. In the downtown east side, the media often portrays my neighborhood as a place not to go. Like, in fact, on some maps, when you're a tourist, it doesn't even exist. And so I just think that I know that the people in my neighborhood, that when kids, because I raised my kids here, I had like little ones. I gave birth to St. James and brought my babies home here. And there's nothing further from the truth that anyone in this neighborhood would ever lay a finger on a kid. In fact, you hear this phrase, kids on the block, when you're walking your stroller down the Hastings, because there's such respect for kids. I believe that kids is what is going to turn this neighborhood around. I think that the kids are going to be the leaders in this revitalization project that Steadfast is, quote unquote, leading. I think it's the families that live here that don't get any media attention. And it's all about the drama that happens. I'm not going to say drama doesn't happen in my neighborhood. It definitely does. But it's what I think that the media just loves to hone in on how bad this neighborhood is. And I just don't think that the beautiful things of this neighborhood gets highlighted enough in the media, because quite frankly, they're boring. but they're there, and it just gets oversought. It doesn't get the attention that needs.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is I think that's a real gift for your kids to get a real glimpse of a community that's working in lots of different ways and can sort their way or find their way through the world as a result of it. I lived in the downtown east side before I had to leave for about 10 years. So I've got a lot of friends and family that live in the downtown east side, and I love it. I think that the kids living in the downtown east side is a real gift, that it's a real opportunity for them to get a glimpse of a community and maybe a glimpse of the larger world. And many of the solutions that come out of the downtown east side are going to go forward in helping other communities in the world. And it's a wonderful community, but it has issues. And I'm concerned that there aren't enough people like you or Steadfast Developments turning their attention to those issues.
Well, there are a few. They're few and far between, I think, because developers that have the capacity to be in a place of leadership, management, and to hold all the things that developers need to hold from a financial, all the balls that developers need to juggle to hold from a financial place, managing your team. When you have that level of skills, most people want to go to the West Side and make the most money that they possibly can. And I've got lots of capitalistic friend developers and that have been very kind to me in teaching me and training me. And so most people aren't going, okay, I've got that skill set. I know I'm going to go to a place where I'm going to make next to no money. And in fact, Steadfast Development is looking at a rent to own model. So we're actually wanting, because I was talking about justice and talking about poverty and how do we move and redistribute wealth, which is a justice principle, so that families can live in the downtown east side long term. So one of our programs that we're trying to figure out and through a philanthropy model is how to move so that people will want to stay here. As you know, our neighborhood is very transient and people are in and out all the time. But we need a foundation, and that's where Steadfast Development's name kind of came from, was this idea that it's steadfast, that it's not moving. Our buildings are strong. They're not moving. They have a foundation. And I am a believer in, and so the word of steadfast love that comes out from the psalmist is incredibly powerful to me. And so one of the models that I wanted to talk about was just this idea of how do you give land and home ownership to a poor family, and what does that do? I've done significant research around what does a successful revitalization project look like. And I came across one man by the name of James Rouse. He was a developer in the States and developed a project called Columbia. And what he decided to do, he's one of my heroes. What he decided to do, he said, okay, I'm going to take this land and I'm going to completely do a whole new city here called Columbia. But 50% is going to be for white land ownership and 50% will be for Black land ownership. And he promised himself that once the white families have bought out their half, that he wouldn't, in his own integrity, would not say, oh, well, you know what, I'd probably get a higher price if I sold it to a white family during the 60s and a Black family. But he was true to his word, and Black families purchased land in this area, which during the time was just like a radical move. There is a wonderful YouTube video on his life, and out of this whole hour and a half biography, there's a 30-second clip of this woman that says, my dad was one of those land owners. And because of that, my children will never know poverty. And, I even start to get a little emotional. It was a 30-second clip. Like if you blinked, you may have missed it. But it was the most powerful 30 seconds. And that really spoke to me as a land developer. And I was like, okay, so what do you want to do here, Cherie? You have potentially the power to do something similar in the downtown east side and completely stop the cycle of poverty by allowing poor families to own property.
So unpack this for me. Where do you start?
Like I said, I think the starting piece is to move in and get to know the people and get to know the needs of the people. We've had problems with the government in the past where they've come in, they've just helicoptered in, they've spent millions of dollars and the neighborhood hasn't changed in the slightest. And so I think the starting piece is rallying and unifying the organization